What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? It's time for the DFO Live. Gaffar here in Vancouver. That's Carter Hutton over there, and I'm filling in for Tyler Yaremchuk, who will be back, just keeping this seat warm for him. We are streaming to you on the DFO YouTube channel, and we are a presentation of Bet365. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Huts, what's going on? How are you, my friend? Just one full day of NHL games left before we're off and all watching the Olympics.
I know, unbelievable too. We had a little bit of a delay here as the women's team, Team Finland comes down with the flu or whatever's going on. But for Ty, you're filling in well. He's down in Arizona getting his. I saw he was at like one of those pop strokes or a stroke and putt, whatever place it is, those fancy pitch and putt. So I'm sure he's getting a tan and he's enjoying himself. So good for him. And I'm glad I got you, buddy. It's gonna be a great show.
Yeah, it is going to be a great show. I'm pretty sure that pop stroke is owned by Tiger Woods, so pretty crazy little tie-in there in Arizona. But anyways, let's get to one of our topics that was one that, I don't know if shocked the hockey world is the right kind of term to use, because everyone knew it was going to happen. But when you see a deal like this and of its magnitude done between two pretty big teams, it definitely garners a lot of reaction. So Artemi Panarin traded from the New York Rangers to the Los Angeles Kings for Liam Greentree and a conditional pick, which turns to be a third rounder if the LA Kings make the playoffs. And then if they win 2 rounds, they also get another pick. But let me ask you this. When you look at this deal in its totality, Artemi Panarin only wanted to go to the Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday morning. So Wednesday morning, Chris Drury finds out that this guy's only going to one team. There may have been other suitors, and now we can only work with the Kings. I know people are hating on the return that that the Rangers ended up getting, but what's your take on that?
Well, I guess that's the strength of a no movement clause, right? You get to hold all the cards, you get to decide what you want to do. And maybe this is a lesson for teams moving forward that we shouldn't be giving these out to every single player. And obviously Panarin is that sort of player where it felt like he probably wasn't getting a deal done with the New York Rangers without a no movement clause. And this is a guy that just loves the big vibes. He wants to be in the Big Apple, right? Like when he signed in New York, that's where he wanted to be. He wanted to be on the big stage. And then this transitions to LA, another major market in the NHL. So I guess it's on Panarin that he has this choice. I think for the LA Kings, it's just a vote of confidence. When you look at Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar late in their career, we know it's Kopitar's last year. This is a team that needs to make the playoff. I think if you're Ken Holland, if you're Jim Hiller, this is great. But then on the other side of the fact is if you're a New York Rangers fan, this is better than getting nothing. Like at the end of the day, if he just holds out and he says, I'm only going to LA, this is where I want to be, then next thing you know, you're stuck holding the bag and all of a sudden you lose Panarin for nothing. So it is what it is. And right now, I think for New York Rangers, it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel because of the way this season has gone, expectations from last year and this year. And now all of a sudden you're sitting here without Panarin, who's been your main offensive threat, right? In 52 games, 19 goals. He's 2 seasons removed from scoring 49, Irf. So this is like a big move, and I think he can be a shot in the arm for the LA Kings.
2 years, $22 million. Pretty good chunk of change for him just to go for a couple of seasons. But you and I just talked about this briefly before we even went on and said, you even made the good point of like, he gets a 2-year deal here and he plays well in LA. There's an opportunity for him to make even more money on his next contract.
Yeah, and one thing I will say that I know about Panarin just from playing against him and guys that have been around him is he is a physical specimen. He takes very good care of himself, similar to Sergei Bobrovsky. I know they were buddies, and I know a few years ago when he signed a big ticket in New York, it was him and Bobrovsky were partying on a yacht with the wives, and they live a specific life, but it's earned, right? And that's something that is so important here, and I think at his age, at 34, he can fit in, and we've seen a lot of stars last late into their 30s. Look what Brad Marchand's been able to do. I don't think he's ever been the same offensive threat as Panarin. So that being said, 2 good years, but you're still making $11 million a year, Irf. Like he's going to be okay. I think he's going to get by fine on the beach. He moved in from the big city to the beach, and Panarin's going to look good in the LA Kings jersey.
Kings just sit 3 points out behind the Anaheim Ducks for the final wild card spot. There's going to be some question marks. They're going to have to address the center ice position after Anze Kopitar, finishes his career in Los Angeles. But immediate impact, when you look at what Artemi Panarin can bring to the LA Kings, like whoever plays in that center line position, it's going to be Kempe. You put whoever it is, probably Kopitar, and now Panarin. That's a pretty good line, is it not?
I think it is too. And again, I think it just lightens the load a little bit when you look at what they've expected from Quinton Byfield too, right? I think he's been underwhelming in the sense of where he thought he could be. And maybe that changes the plan of this, where his offensive upside hasn't been up to par where they thought he could go. And Panarin is a proven player. And again, I do think that there is a little bit of that luster throughout the team, a vote of confidence that we believe in this group and we think we can be better. And that's going to show you when you get a player like that in your lineup. You know, for Adrian Kempe, for Fiala, for Byfield, for the guys that are producing those points, this is going to be a big shot in the arm too. And again, we've seen it how many times with teams when a superstar comes in, it raises everybody else. So I think this is going to be powerful for the LA Kings.
On the other side of it, the New York Rangers, much like some of the other bottom teams in the NHL, are going nowhere fast, but it's at least they're sending out letters. They're saying that we're open for business, and they're going about business by actually doing business, unlike some other teams right now. So for the New York Rangers, I guess what's the next step for the Blue Shirts here? Is it try and sell guys off? Because at some point, I've always maintained the position where you don't bring a Mike Sullivan in here for a rebuild. Like you just don't. He's not that type of head coach. So where do things go from here for them?
I think it's a sell-off, right? I think that's been proven, you know, Susie being out, some guys moving in, and I just don't know where it is. I think the biggest thing, if I'm a New York Rangers fan or management, is like, what do we have on our shelves, right? Like, what do we have in-house that we can promote and give guys a chance to have an opportunity? Because I think that's where it's important. And I think if I'm the New York Rangers, I'm trying to take a page out of the Boston Bruins playbook at this point, right? This is a team that's lost a lot of picks. They've been to the Cup. They've, you know, kind of, the cupboard seems dry when you think of the Boston Bruins, but they've overexceeded this year. And I think that is a fact of giving some guys a second chance and promoting from within. So I still think, you know, when you look at this Vincent Trocheck conversation, his name has been thrown around a lot. I think he is a team that if he goes to any contender as a player, he can help them out. So I think anything goes now in New York. You have Shesterkin locked up for the future. He's a big difference maker, but this could be a slow grind to try to get back to the promised line where they want to be.
It's interesting. There's a lot of teams that are in a similar position right now. So if you're in the East and you look at players that are teams that are selling off, like the Toronto Maple Leafs might be a seller here at some point. You look at the St. Louis Blues. We've heard everything about them. So buying players right now, I feel like as much as it's going to be a break here coming up in the next couple of weeks for some GMs and coaches in the National Hockey League, there are some corner offices that are going to be busy on the phone lines, guys trying to improve their team. Because as soon as that roster freeze lifts on February 22nd, I feel like those first couple of days, you're going to start to see some deals.
Oh yeah, 100%. Right. And I think this is the same as like trade deadlines and free agencies. The pressure mounts too. A lot of times it's kind of like we're waiting for the first big move to happen and things start to go. And we've had some little deals. Nick Bukestad was dealt yesterday to the New York Jersey Devils. It's a smaller deal, but I think for the Devils, adding a little bit of depth, some size, maybe it helps them. I think things are going to start to roll here. And again, with this roster freeze, it's not surprising that they got this deal done, right? You don't want to sit on your hands when a blockbuster deal is being made. Now teams need to really assess where they're at. And I know we're going to get to that as we move on to like what's going on across the NHL, but there's a lot of teams that I think now it seems like it's now or never in a conference, especially in the East, where, you know, it's a lot of different teams now that are, you know, having a great year, 5 in, 5 out. It's been a big changer.
Yeah. And I think that there's going to be a lot of different things. I really want to dig into kind of the who's hot and who's not here once we get to it. But first, an interesting story, and one that this one I think shocked the hockey world a little bit. And we're going to talk about it because it's out there. Everyone else has talked about it, and it's something that I think needs to be talked about. Gavin McKenna, freshman at Penn State, has been charged with aggravated assault by police in State College, PA. He's also charged with misdemeanor simple assault, disorderly conduct, and engaging in fighting and harassment. Now, there are reports out there that, you know, someone was beaking off his mom, things got kind of out of hand, and, you know, he let the guy have it. we're not going to spend too much time on this one, but Carter, let's just say I don't think this kid's going to end up in jail. And to be completely fair, I've talked to a couple people in and around, you know, some National Hockey League circles. I don't think it's going to hurt his draft stock at all.
No, it is. I think the main thing that comes of this that I hope is this is a learning experience for him. And you have to understand that you are in the limelight, right? And right now he's paid a lot of money to play hockey, which doesn't seem like that's going to change anytime in the near future. And you need to be accountable for your actions and what you're doing. So I don't know enough about it, but I also think that like this is a learning curve for a young kid. You give a young kid a ton of dough, he's in college and people are going to say stuff. Everyone knows who you are. So hopefully he can learn from it and hopefully he stays out of major trouble in this issue.
Yeah, and I think that that's exactly what's going to happen. I think that he'll definitely learn from this. I think he's got enough good people around him where his agents, his coaches, and, people that are close to him are going to help him kind of learn from this. And I don't think teams are too worried about his character, so to speak. I think that there was a situation where, things kind of went sideways and he reacted on impulse, and he's going to have to learn from that, obviously being a very young man here entering, his professional hockey career. All right, let's get to who's hot and who's not in the National Hockey League, because I think this is a great conversation where you and I can look at some teams right now in the National Hockey League and be like, okay, why do we think that this team is playing well heading into the break, and why do we think this team is not? The Tampa Bay Lightning have been quite an interesting story this season. And for what John Cooper is doing with this roster that he has and the team that he has, over 1,000 games coached in the National Hockey League, this guy has never won Coach of the Year. He's never won a Jack Adams, which is shocking to me. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are a scary team, and if they can figure out the cap space and how to add here right around the deadline, I think the East is going to be theirs, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that was a team Ty and I kicked the tires on, like Panarin ending up there, right? Because they've been aggressive, and obviously that ship has sailed. But that being said, you look at these last two wins when you talk about character and you talk about being able to punch back against tough hockey teams. You beat the Buffalo Sabres with a big comeback. A stadium series, the huge comeback against the Boston Bruins, the goalie fight, everything's gone into it. And those were like shootout games, right? 4-3 in overtime, 6-5 in a shootout. But then they beat the Winnipeg Jets 4-1. They beat the Utah Mammoth 2-0 in tight games. It feels like right now the Tampa Bay Lightning can beat you any which way. And we talk about teams having tough years and, injuries and everything that's gone into it. The Tampa Bay Lightning are a team that has dealt with them more than ever, and they've found a way to win. I think that's what good hockey teams do, and I think that's just part of their leadership group and something that's been impressive for me, Irf.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of teams that obviously can go into that, situation of, leadership group and playing well and being there and having that experience versus teams that are younger. For me, you look at the San Jose Sharks, right? They're a team where you got Macklin Celebrini. He's got, all the gifts in the world. They added Kiefer Sherwood. I still think that they're going to be a buyer because they owe it to Celebrini and to Will Smith and these young players to go and try and make a run. But I'm not entirely sure if I want to play them in the first round if they get in. Like, they're a pesky team. If Askarov, can end up playing well and shut things down, they could be a team that I don't know how much noise they're going to make in the playoffs if they get there, but they might make a little bit.
Yeah, and I think there's value just for a team like San Jose hanging around, right? Just adding some experience. And that's something that's so invaluable as an NHLer is just being around meaningful hockey games, right? The season is a grind, but understanding how to take your game from a regular season level Tuesday night when there's nobody at the game in certain markets to an NHL playoff game and the intensity and how every inch matters. And I think that's where San Jose would be at down the stretch. I think this will be a successful season either way. And on the other side of that, for me, is the Edmonton Oilers, just limping in right now to the break and the way they lost last night. And I know Pat has some sound of Leon going off last night about the goaltending and where this team is at, how it's a little bit of both, and the Oilers limp into the Olympic break here.
Tristan just sat here and said that he's got to be better. He's got to keep more pucks out of the net, give you guys a chance to win. I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
It goes hand in hand. We got to defend better. We got to make it easier on him, and then I'm sure he can be a little bit better too. It's a two-way street, but it starts with us in front of him, and then the game becomes a little bit easier for him. But I think there's saves that our goalies need to make at some point. You need everybody. It starts with coaches, everybody. You're never going to win if you have 4 or 5 guys going, and it starts at the top. We can be better, our leaders can be better, and we'll take the break and regroup.
You know what the expectation is for the Edmonton Oilers. They've been to 2 straight Cup finals. They've lost them both. Obviously, they are a frustrated group. Leon Draisaitl, one of the 2 best players on their team, one of the few best players in the world. Hutz, let me ask you this. You ever been a part of a team where a veteran guy and a leader of the group calls out, its coaching staff and players right like that after a tough loss in the media?
I don't know to that extent, like that superstar status, but I did play with a disgruntled Jack Eichel a lot, who said a lot of things to the media that hit home. But it is what it is, right? Like, you're competitive guys, you want to win. It's not lack of caring, it's not lack of trust, but being able to say that to the media, in my personal opinion, is a right that's earned by Leon Draisaitl, right? Like, you want to keep those meetings in-house behind closed doors. It has more impact. But heat of a moment, you can see he's stressed, and it's a tough loss heading into the break here for the Oilers.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Patrick, it's time to get to our guests, and we're really looking forward to having this one today. Pleased to be joined now by a 17-year NHL vet, over 1,000 game plays, and anywhere that I've read over the last little while, Cal, you're deserving of an Oscar for your summer internship performance.
Yeah.
Cal Clutterbuck, thank you so much for doing this, taking the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
I guess
Cal,
I wanna
obviously great having you on too.
Yeah,
Cal, I got to go back to when you guys were the identity line, playing against you guys all the time. And I see Patty Waugh benching the superstars, right? Like, sending a message, the way this team's going to be built. Do you not feel like you're part of that identity of the New York Islanders? Because I remember how many games I started against you guys, and it was like, I knew the puck was coming in deep and you're going to make hell on our team.
Yeah, no, it was, we had a good run. Casey, Marty, and I, we had, Marty went to Toronto for a couple of years, but we played together for 10 years. And for guys in our position, in the lineup, it's not an easy thing to, stick on one team, let's say, for a while, but let alone one team with the same guys. So what ends up happening is you develop sort of just a sixth sense for being with those guys. So the game really just kind of flows nicely for you. So we were lucky enough to have the runway to get to know each other very well. It helps that we all kind of get along personally. We had our issues off the ice, but it was more like, three brothers kind of just messing around. But we really, the identity for us was, and I think we were a big part of a couple of those teams that had a lot of success. We would go out there and manage the moments. So we were, you score a big goal, you start a period, start a game, big penalty kills. Those were our moments. And we took a lot of pride in those moments. It's one of the things I'm most proud of with those two guys is that, sometimes it can be difficult as a, quote unquote fourth line to feel like you have an impact that's measurable. I feel like we were not only given the amount of ice time and the responsibility to be able to have that impact, but we were able to go out there and do it consistently. So for us, definitely a point of pride. We took a lot of pride in our responsibilities, and we knew what our job was. And it's not to say we didn't go out there and try and score. We didn't, we scored big goals, we scored timely goals, but we weren't going to sacrifice. We weren't going to sacrifice the moments of the game for the team just so that we could grab a couple extra cookies. And that's just the way we went about it, and it worked out well for us. And honestly, you look at the Florida Panthers. That fourth line of theirs got them a second cup. I'm not sure about the first one. I think the first one was driven by their top guys. But I think every championship team needs one, and I even think the Tampa Bay Lightning went out and put a line together to be able to combat us when they beat us twice. And I know that actually in talking to some people who were part of making that team. So it's nice that we were able to have an impact that way.
Identity and culture and things like that are always words that we use when talking about National Hockey League and teams that separate themselves from another. But I want to talk about the New York Islanders and how much things have changed. Obviously you get Matthew Schaefer, and that's a completely change in the direction and philosophy of an organization. So my question to you, I guess, is what's working right now and how much has changed with the way that Matthew Darche operates, the way that Patrick Waugh operates, and trickling down all the way to the players?
Yeah, I would say there's more It starts at the top. You heard Leon just say it in the clip you guys just showed, right? It starts at the top. Now, that's not to say that, I mean, we had the ultimate guy at the top in Lou. You want to talk about daily accountability, look no further than Lou Lamoriello, which was great because I think we had in New York at the time, we had a really great nucleus of guys. We had a lot of talent. We just needed someone to come in and, similar to the Buffalo Sabres right now, we needed someone to come in and instill that daily sense of responsibility in the group. You can try and do it as a player as much as you want, but it just doesn't work. So after 8 years of that, sorry, the Islander fan base, a little exhausted with the way that we were going about trying to win. I think that the league is outgrowing that sort of let's just take care of our own end and score enough to win mentality. I think the talent is too dynamic. I think the way that it's all gone. So Matthew Darche comes in a little bit more relaxed situation for a lot of guys who've been there a long time. There's freedom for the players to be seen in public. That creates a buzz in the rink. Then you get the first overall pick. You get really lucky with the first overall pick because, a first overall pick's great in any year. But when you're talking about a player who can come in and have the type of impact that this kid's had, it just raises everyone's level. I think the Matt Barzals of the world, Bo Horvats of the world get excited. They have a new toy to play with. They are excited about different ways that they can create offense. I think that one of the biggest things that the Islanders had trouble with is offense from the back end. That is started to change. Even Lou brought in Tony DeAngelo last year. I felt like the Islanders needed some puck movers, getting stuck in their own end a lot, not allowing their skilled players to go and have the puck in the good spots. And so all of those things combined, a little more relaxed attitude. Patrick Waugh, obviously very reliant on his top six. Emil Heineman's come in and been great for them. Slots in nicely with Bo Horvat. Matt Barzal's playing well. And then Schaefer has come in and really, I was asked this question the other day. I would say that Matthew Schaefer has had, there aren't many first overall picks that have had an impact at 18 the way that he has. The only two that come to my mind are Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid. And I know it's, it might seem bold for me to say it, but I live it. And not only that, he's doing it at the defense position, when was the last first overall pick as a defenseman came in as an 18-year-old and had this type of impact on a franchise? I in my recent memory, as far as I know, I don't know of one. And so the Islanders are blessed. It starts there with Schaefer, but then it reverberates throughout, and Darche and Patrick Waugh have done a great job of kind of letting the kid run, and so it's been fun to watch.
Which has been impressive, right? We touched on that yesterday, how he's so close to, breaking Phil Housley record of most goals by an 18-year-old defenseman. And the other player that I wanted to touch on, now that you're on the other side and you're watching it more, like Ilya Sorokin, right? Because there's been a lot of talk, right? Like, the goalie coach gets fired, someone comes in, and he's been like the MVP from what I have seen. You get to watch this team a little more hands-on. How big of an impact has he been for this New York Islanders team?
Well, the Hart Trophy voting in my mind is Macklin Celebrini and then Ilya Sorokin close second. And I don't think you can deny Macklin Celebrini's impact on the Sharks. When you lead your team in scoring by 50 points, and your team goes from winning 17 games to potentially making the playoffs, that's just undeniable. But Ilya has won the New York Islanders so many games. If you look at the New York Islanders' underlying defensive metrics, they're horrific. And any team that has those type of numbers, you would not expect to pull up the Metropolitan Division standings and see them in the top three. Now they're in the top three by, razor thin margins, but that's on the heels of not only Ilya winning them, I would say conservatively 8 games, maybe closer to 12, and then David Rittich has won them 3 or 4. You're talking about a big swing. So now that being said, how you pay your goalies too. Goalies are superstars as well. You look at the great goalies of the past. Are the New Jersey Devils the New Jersey Devils without Brodeur? Or are the Buffalo Sabres the Sabres without Hasek? Like, I don't think they are. And you look at teams that win cups, and again, you go back to the Draisaitl quote, like you need goaltending, and the teams who have elite goaltending have a leg up on everybody. And so Ilya's been incredible, especially since you mentioned the goalie coach change. Now, you would know better than I, but I would say playing goal is a unique position. Obviously, I think everyone learns to play goal as a kid, and then improves on their basic athletic qualities as they mature and become pro. But there's a basic foundation for how you feel comfortable moving and how you feel comfortable reading, reacting, and positioning yourself to make saves. And so if somebody comes in with a different philosophy, it's got to be difficult for a goaltender to try and adapt to that philosophy, because I feel like it's almost like you're pushing and pulling at the same time as a goaltender. And I would think, I've never played the position, but I would think that you would want to be in the mind frame when you go into those games, just not thinking you're just going to go out and play hockey. And so you prep in practice, you do your goalie skates, all those things. But Sergei is the one who was coaching Ilya in Moscow when he first became a pro, when he first became this elite, albino rhino for the New York Islanders that people talked about getting over here for years before he came. I think that he's just allowed Ilya to go back to his sort of fundamentals, his feels, like his real feels, like just go out there and play goal. And Sergei knows what they are, so it's more familiar to him. So he goes out there and does well. And I think there's a couple equipment tweaks that he's done. I think his skate blades might be a little sharper than they were, things like that. Just little things that have just allowed him to just regain that form and honestly potentially surpass the form that he had a couple years ago.
Cal, so thank you so much. That was awesome. Yeah, great stuff there, definitely. Just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us on this program. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
As always, some really fascinating stuff when you get to sit down and hear someone who's played the game for as long as Cal has, and his insight on the New York Islanders and identity and, how things work when it comes to, the National Hockey League. So some definitely great stuff there from Cal Clutterbuck. Thank you to him for joining us. But I want to get to, before we continue this, to our daily bets. Patrick Buff, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever you bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I see that Johnny Lazarus obviously taking a day off after, hitting his bet the other day. Didn't he do that, Huts?
Yeah, he did. That's it though, Patty? You hit it and then we kick you off the show. That's why he's gone. So we'll see how he can do today here, buddy.
Yeah, it's a bit of a backwards world right now. I just kind of went with the heart play though, picking Edmonton, and honestly, what a whiff on that one.
Yeah, minus 1.5 in the Oilers. Yeah, it's tough.
So, Irf, you start us off. What do you got for us today, my man?
That is tough. Okay, so I'm going to go, and I hate betting unders, but with the way that I look at it right now, you've got two games happening a little bit later on today. Tampa and Florida are playing each other, and there's about, I think it's 18 Olympians, if I'm not mistaken, between the two teams. So I am going to say that you bet the under in that game. Those guys are just not going to get hurt. They're going to try and figure it out and just coast through that hockey game. And I know the Tampa and Florida battle, it's this, that, and the other, the Battle of Florida, but I'm not entirely sure in this one. I don't think anyone wants to get hurt. And also under 6 in Vegas and the Los Angeles Kings. Panarin's not there for this hockey game. And the Vegas Golden Knights also have a lot of players going to the Olympics. I'm pretty sure that those guys are just going to try and play that 60 minutes, not try and get hurt. I know points are at a premium, but I think going to the Olympics and staying healthy for that is going to be something that is very important to their star players.
Yeah, I think those are both pretty solid. I'm going to go with Tage Thompson, 1+ point tonight and 3+ shots. Also, Sidney Crosby, 1+ point. I don't think I have to say much about Crosby. 1+ point is pretty average for him. He's proven himself there. Tage Thompson, he's got he's had 1 point in 7 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, so I like that. And he just likes to shoot the puck. So 3 shots should be pretty simple for him at plus 180. It's a little conservative, but I need to get back in the winning column. Huts?
Yeah, I like it too. Tage Thompson told me he's going to come on the show, so I got to start hounding him again because that'd be a great guest to have on. But I'm going with the Washington Capitals puck line, minus 1.5 against the Nashville Predators. They're on back-to-back. And then I'm taking the Ottawa Senators money line. They've been playing such great hockey as of late. They've been defending hard. You'll see Linus Ullmark in the net tonight. He's won his first 2 starts since his leave. So I think this is feels like a must-win for the Ottawa Senators. So I'm riding that at plus 333 because I'm on a winning streak, boys.
And if you really feel like you got the cojones to do it, you put all those together on a same game and just see what happens. The odds would be absolutely nuked. Whatever you bet, it's never ordinary. You bet 365, download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION. Bet 365, must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. All right, I want to get to a couple of things and kind of finish off that conversation that you and I were having, Huts, in garbage time, just about teams in the National Hockey League and kind of the who's hot and who's not. And who's really hot to start the season was the Colorado Avalanche. You know what? They haven't been playing some good hockey in the last couple of weeks.
No, they haven't too. And I think something that, I guess it kind of flew under the radar a little bit too. I felt when the Dallas Stars were struggling, like we didn't really talk about it, but they're a team in the Central Division now that have flipped the script a bit. They've won their last 6. The Minnesota Wild has won their last 5, and Colorado's struggling a little bit. And we chatted about this pre-show. Are the Avs maybe one of those teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning when they lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets? Or is this going to help them? Is having a little bit of a tough stretch during the year, make you a little stronger when it comes down to the playoff time? So that being said, there's been a lot of storylines. And I think if I'm the Dallas Stars, I'm kind of happy Jason Robertson isn't going to the Olympics. Wyatt Johnson's not going to the Olympics. Some of these guys get a little extra rest. So give or take what you take from it, the Central Division is star-studded, and those teams in second and third and they're coming for blood right now.
You feel like the East is set almost because the team's going to have to go on a run. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they're only 4 points out as the time that we do this. The Leafs, 6 points out. The Capitals as well. And I feel like beyond that, you look at it, it's going to be tough sledding for the Florida Panthers to try and make the playoffs. So when you look at the Eastern Conference, you feel like it's pretty much set now?
I don't. I honestly don't. I don't know if the Boston Bruins can hold serve. I don't think they're there. And the way the Columbus Blue Jackets are playing, it's going to be powerful for this team to push through with Rick Bowness. It's been a lot of fun to watch, the change in the tide. And the fact for me that you look at the last 2 games, it's back-to-back shutouts. Elvis with a shutout. Jed Greaves has been great every single time he's in the crease. So I do think it's there. And again, I'm not going to count with the Washington Capitals. For the Leafs, I'm not sure. I'm not putting my word out there on the Leafs because that'll be a clip that goes viral about me praising the Leafs. And then next thing you know, they'll crash.
You're going to be included in one of those videos where the team makes the montage and they put it out, and it's all the insiders and analysts say about the team when they did something and no one believed in them. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that the Leafs are going to be a playoff team. I think that Johnny Lazarus, they're going to give him his shots, man. His credit, he might have had it right early on in the year when he said the Leafs weren't a playoff team. So it's going to be interesting to see, but really enjoyed doing this today, Huts. Thank you for having me on, and really appreciate you having me on.
Irf, thanks for filling in, buddy. Obviously, we missed Ty, but it's been a good week. And tomorrow we have an interview that we're going to air with Rick Nash, which will be a great one. And we have Olympic hockey coming. So it's been exciting times. And thanks for joining us, man. It's great as always.
Yeah, I had a blast doing this.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.